Welcome back to Fast Gadgets, and a good morning to you if you are up in the morning as I am today. It's a beautiful day out. Finally, Michigan's seeing a little relief from the heat. Predicted only to be in the 70s today, which is awesome. This is Linux in the news, and we're going to get started. So first on my list, very interesting, ask Slashdot, is KDE dying? I would be curious to hear what you think. In some ways I do agree with this, but a longtime KDE user said, is the KDE desktop becoming antiquated? And he was concerned because he says that what was once a fairly vibrant and active contributory site has become a ghost town. Various KDE components are no longer updated. And I honestly say I would have to agree. I can see where some of those core updates don't seem to be being done anymore. One example he uses is the Conqueror web browser, and he calls it a virtual carcass. Well, I don't know about that, but I would have to say that as far as web browsers go, most people automatically switch to Firefox on Linux. Or possibly Chrome or Chromium, depending on what you prefer. But I have to agree that the Conqueror web browser is definitely a problem. And there was another good point. What about the theming engine? Well, I'm in KDE right now, and if you are a user of KDE, you should be fairly familiar with the theming engine, and it's just awful. Let's take a look at it real quick. So, you know, the problem with the theme engine, half the time you don't know what it is you're changing. When you make changes, it's subtle, or you really don't see any differences. You have to select a different theme, but that doesn't change everything. Then you have to go into desktop behavior. You may have to change icons and fonts. So there's all kinds of different settings that you have to change, and for the most part, as far as theming goes, it really doesn't make much of a difference. So it's very archaic and difficult to use and not very user friendly. So I can see the point of the author here, and is it slowly dying? I hope not. But you know, as far as desktop environments go, if I really wanted something that was Windows-like, I probably would consider Cinnamon. I've used Cinnamon before, and it was very nice, very intuitive. And of course I use GNOME most of the time, but I do use KDE when I come over to do my editing in Kdenlive, because Kdenlive, the application, is much more stable and seems to run much better when I'm running it in KDE, which makes some type of sense, doesn't it, since it is a KDE application. Next in the news, when I read this one I actually was a little concerned. Fedora 25 to run Wayland by default. Well, yeah, I kind of got a headache when I read that title. My experience so far with Wayland, I have tested it. There are many issues with it. One being I'm not able to set any other resolutions beside the default, which I'm sure is a minor bug. Hopefully it can be fixed. Will it be fixed by Fedora 25? We'll see. Oddly enough, I noticed some strange behavior when I was using the command line and using sudo. So there were certain functions I couldn't do, and I would have access denied messages, and at this point I can't really remember. Shame on me. But at the time I was testing Wayland, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? I thought, you know, it can't possibly be the X windowing. I'm in the command line. So I logged out of my Wayland session and went into X11, and everything worked perfectly. So I'm just a little concerned. However, it does say if needed we can switch back to X11. There will be a way to go back, and it'll be quite simple. right now you can select when you go to log in either Wayland or X11. So as long as you can do that, I think it would be fine. But a little concerning. But then I think about it, though. Apple left the X11 server, what, 3-4 years ago? It was back in Lion, I believe, or Mountain Lion. So they have an open source system called Xquartz that they developed that replaced X11, and there was literally an uproar about it. I was reading a lot of the articles, and people were really freaked out about losing X11 and how they blamed Apple for basically throwing any X11 proprietary apps under the bus. And Apple said, no, we still have X11 APIs and compatibility. You can compile any X11 apps that you need, and you can still run X11. So we're not saying it's gone. We're just saying it's not used by default anymore. And that's basically what Fedora is saying. And there is a point where we have to kind of move into the future. So once again, double-edged sword, but I'm glad to see the Fedora Foundation trying to push forward and innovate with technology. If we don't get Linux distros to actually use Wayland, there will be no impetus, no movement to work on the source code and fix these bugs and get us on Wayland. So I think it's a good thing. Xorg and X11, great service, and certainly provided the windowing system for these years and has done a good job, but we do need to move forward. And I don't see a major change to the X11 code base anytime soon, so it's not like we can stay on X11 permanently. Just my opinion. Shockingly, in the news, article in Softpedia, there is the Rex Linux Trojan that's been around since May, but apparently this Trojan has been updated, and now the Trojan is very powerful. And one of the things that has been happening is it's been used now as ransomware, and Drupal sites were targeted and some other web services as well. And apparently once this malware is on the server, they're using Bitcoin extortion. They're able to launch DDoS attacks with this malware. And according to this article on Softpedia, it can also infect WordPress and Magento sites, and currently there is no official virus fix for it, antivirus fix I should say, such as VirusTotal. There's no fix for it for the antivirus engine, so it may be a little while before it's fixed. The other thing they can do with the Rex malware is they can send out spam messages. So this basically, your server joins a botnet and it can do so many things. They can extort you for Bitcoin, they can extort your company, they can send out spam and further extort you, basically try to get you to pay to stop the spamming. They can do DDoS attacks, so it's really bad news. And we were talking about this in one of my earlier videos, that, you know, should you move to Linux to avoid viruses and Trojans and things like that? And although they're fewer and far between, yes, there still is malware that's out there inside Linux. So something to think about. You know, that grass is always greener on the other side thing. Well, now this of course would be for servers, but even workstations can get viruses and malware as well. So not specifically Linux related, but we'll chalk this one up to why I'm on Linux and not on Windows. So Microsoft has come up with this great plan. They're going to basically make all of the updates for Windows 7 and 8.1 cumulative, What this essentially means is that from now on, if you do an update, let's say they're going to start this in October, so if you do an update in November, you will receive all of the cumulative updates for October and November. And if you waited all the way till February of the following year to do the update, you would receive all of the updates in one big payload. And it's somewhat controversial. Now, on the one hand, it simplifies things because you have one update to select. It is the update of the time, and it comes out monthly, so that's good. The bad news, you don't have a say on which updates get installed. So this is what some are saying is the worst feature of Windows 10, no control over which updates get installed. Well, with Windows 7 and 8.1, we're going to use the same model now, and you're doing all the updates, and you don't have to like it, but it's the way it is. And I don't know if anybody watches the Security Now video series on YouTube. They're awesome. But basically, some of these updates are highly controversial, and they're geared to try to force you to get Windows 10. And now, of course, it's a fee-based operating system, or as I like to call it, basically a service. You could even call it software as a service if you wanted to, because essentially, you know, what you're getting is a series of services, and it does have some core infrastructure for running applications, but it's really a tool for mining your data and getting information about you. So it's almost like it's the data mining software similar to Facebook, but it's an operating system. Kind of scary thought. Anyway, got off on a tangent there. So you will be doing a monthly roll-up, Windows 7 and 8.1 users, and I'm among those. I still have Windows 8.1 virtual machine, and again, it can be both good and bad, but it's the way it is. Like it or lump it, we're going to be doing these updates, and it'll be monthly, cumulative, and it's an all or nothing proposition. So let's chime in. Let me know what your comments are. Really curious to hear what you think, and whether or not we should be worried about this, and how long do you plan on staying on Windows 8.1 or 7 if you are on either of those operating systems. And are you considering a move to Windows 10, or are you considering a move to Linux? What might you do? Well, thank you for watching, and this has been Linux in the News on Fast Gadgets, and we'll see you next time.